One of the great pleasures that we've had here at Migraine Australia is dealing with the wonderful Bronwyn Jenkins. She's a favourite of many people in our group, and she actually nominated one of her patients for Thriving with Migraine. That's Annabel, who's joined us today. Hi, Annabel. How are you doing?
Hi, Rafaela. I'm doing well, thank you.
Really happy to have you along. So
Tell
us a little bit about you and what you do. You're a university lecturer, yeah?
Yeah, so I'm a midwife, and I've been a clinical midwife for 16 years. I started that just before I turned 30, and I always had the dream to be a university lecturer, and I've been a casual academic for since I think 2011, and just in the last couple of years I've had a permanent position at UTS as a midwifery academic, and my main role there, apart from research and other chores, is to be a lecturer in midwifery, and I teach undergraduates who haven't studied before and are learning to be midwives. So I teach first year.
Yeah, first years are always so much fun. They're always so so full of hope and joy.
They are, and full of nerves and intrepidation, and I my personality, is such that I can make them feel at ease. So I really flourish in that role. I've also got 3 children, 18, 9, and 5. I've got a lovely husband. We live in a shoebox in the northwest of Sydney, and we're a very happy family, and I've got a really lovely extensive family, my parents and my in-laws and everything. And I mentioned that because of the support that I've been provided by my family to be able to achieve my goals of being a university academic.
That's great that you've got a fantastic support network. So let's talk about your migraine. What kind of symptoms do you get, and when did it start for you?
So they started probably around the age of 12, because when my GP, who I still see, I still go to the same practice, turned to electronic medical records. We were able to pick up our old paper records. So I read through all my paper records. And at around the age of 12, my mother was taking me to my GP to report on these migraines. And I was getting my eyes tested and everything. My significant migraines started probably in my 20s. And they were out of control until I then got in touch with Dr. Jenkins, who really helped me get those under control. So what I was having was a migraine a week. So over 4 days a week, I would be having a migraine, and they were such that I'd have to stay in bed. Significant pain, the aura, the funny eye, really intense nausea, and just feeling really unwell. One migraine I ended up in emergency with, and I've never been in so much pain. And as a midwife, after a woman's had any kind of birth, we ask them, what's your pain score, and they'll say, 10 out of 10, but yet they're smiling and they're happy, and their facial expressions are like mine now. So we know that that's not 10 out of 10 pain, but I've experienced 10 out of 10 pain once in my life, and that was I ended up in emergency after a really bad migraine, because I had changed certain blood pressure medications, so I could conceive, because my previous ones were not suitable for conception. So I ended up with really bad pain, and it was 10 out of 10 pain. But that's the only time I've had 10 out of 10 pain. I would say that before they were under control, that the pain level was 8 out of 10. I couldn't stand up. We'd have to get GPs to come to my home, and then they would prescribe tramadol, which is really not that effective for migraines. And my GP kept on saying, go and see this doctor. And I don't know why, I was feeling really overwhelmed with them, and I just wasn't making any decisions. And then I finally said, no, I need to go and see her. And so I went and saw her. So I'm now on all these different medications for them. And I get one migraine a month, and that's 4 or 5 days of a migraine. And when people because I hang out with lots of medical practitioners, lots of midwives, nurses, etc. When I say to them I get a migraine for 4 or 5 days in a month, they just can't believe it. They just say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, that's terrible." I'm like, "No, that is so much better than what I used to have, which was a migraine a week." So I permanently had a headache, and permanently every week was expecting a migraine. And that's despite, having, a good diet. I don't drink alcohol, all these thoughts of things that I was trying to inhibit getting migraines, but I was just getting them all the time. It was very significant.
So when you finally did go and see the wonderful Dr. Bronwyn Jenkins, how transformative was that to your understanding of migraine and your migraine journey?
Well, first of all, I think what is very important about a neurologist is that they believe you and that they validate you. I don't know if this is what other people feel, but with migraines, there's a tiny feeling of shame surrounding them. And that's because migraines are often seen, and this is not true totally, but they're often seen as a female disease. And they're often seen as, "Oh, you're just a wimp. You've just got a minor headache. I've had a headache before, blah, blah." But not unless you've had them do you realize the impact on your life. It's the impact on every aspect of your life. So first of all, her validating my experience, listening to me and believing me, and not kind of making me feel that I was making them more significant than they were. She was saying, "Yes, you're experiencing this, and that's really bad, and we need to get these under control." So that was the first thing that was life-changing for me, being understood and being validated. Secondly, she explained to me the process of a migraine, as well as she took me off codeine. So I was on codeine, and she said that's the worst thing that you can be on for a migraine. And I think that's the difference between a specialist and a GP. GPs have to have a very vast understanding of a wide range of health issues, whereas a specialist, obviously has a distinct area of speciality. And so therefore they're very expert at that. And so that was the difference, is that my GP didn't know that codeine was not suitable for migraines, and that it was causing this loop of continual migraine. So what Dr. Jenkins did was she took me off the codeine, which was very significant. Then what she also did was she altered other medication that I'm on for other health issues, and namely one particular one was a blood pressure medication, and she changed those to ones that could be helpful for migraines at the same time as being able to manage my hypertension. Then what she did was she clearly gave me a step-by-step guide of what I need to do if my headache was like this, or like this. And the other thing that she did was she made sure that we had continual appointments, and made sure that I tracked a monthly migraine, on a piece of paper, so I could really be able to see if there are any triggers or anything for my migraines.
So keeping a diary.
Those were very, a migraine diary. So she's really significant. She told me a lot about, because I teach anatomy and physiology, she told me a lot about the anatomy and physiology of it, and I've kind of forgotten because, but she explained what a migraine was, and that was also helpful.
So she mentioned that you have epilepsy as well, and that you have to kind of manage these two very similar yet different conditions that can often be problematic when they happen together. How do you manage that?
So migraines and epilepsy are often two diseases that are comorbid with each other. And so, understanding that was actually good. I'm on 2 medications for my epilepsy, and since having a stint at a hospital where I was having the weekly EEG, and changing my medication. I'm now very well under control. So what initiates my epilepsy is sleeplessness, which was kind of a bit hard when I was a midwife, a clinical midwife, which I've only just ceased being a clinical midwife. So what I needed to do with that was, first of all, when I was a permanent midwife in a permanent capacity, I had to get a yearly doctor's certificate to say that I couldn't work night shift, because it was night shift that was bringing on repetitive seizures. Then what I then had to do was actually change from being full-time to a casual position to be able to make sure that I could control my roster, to make sure that I wasn't having enough, to make sure I was having enough sleep. Once I had proper medication and once I had control of my sleep cycles, my seizure patterns went, my frequency of seizures just diminished. And I haven't had a seizure since 2016. I have, it's called something else now, but I have complex partial epilepsy. And it's, you know, that's another kind of illness, or whatever you call it, that would, you know, be really impacting on my sense of self-esteem and my sense of ability to work in a very complex role, which modern midwifery in the clinical setting is. Because there's that fear that, you know, you will be perceived as someone who doesn't have control of their cerebral functions, and that's not okay in a clinical setting. So I was always scared. And my friend, I said to my friend, you know, I don't want to go to work because I'm worried I'm going to have another seizure because I have to do another night shift. And she just said to me, she's very wise, and she said, well, what will happen is you'll just have a seizure and you'll go home. Big deal, that's all. So once, you know, she kind of put it in perspective, I was like, okay, I suppose. And all the midwives understood, and I'm very open to people in work settings that this is what I have, because if I ever have any kind of, you know, a seizure, or if I get a migraine, I want them to be able to understand what's happening to me. So yeah, I'm pretty much under control now with my medications for that. And yes, it does impact my life in the fact that the medications that I am on impact on my clarity of mind, which is there's a fogginess to my brain, a little bit like my brain's thinking in pea soup. And so that means that that's really challenging in the work that I do, which is work in a university setting, where I have to recall thoughts, recall ideas, and recall information really rapidly. And so I find that challenging. I would say at the moment that, yeah, that's pretty much under control. And my migraines, having them 4 days a month is much better. However, as I was saying, Rafaela, it's like I'm on a tightrope, in that I've got all these medications that are trying to make me function as well as I can. And I don't want to change any of these medications because I'm so worried that my migraines will,
Yeah, you mentioned just
cost.
before we started that you're on a Jovi. Yeah, so,
yes.
You know, for a lot of people, I mean, obviously I'm on Aimovig, and I've actually just been given a script for a Jovi, and I don't want to change. And I think a lot of us who have had success with CGRPs are a bit the same. You know, we've kind of looked at our US friends being forced to change because of insurance reasons. And the fact that a lot of us are kind of sitting there with the same kind of dilemma right at this moment of, you know, do you change to Emgality that's on the PBS? Do you hang out a couple more months for a Jovi? In my case, do I just keep praying that Aimovig is going to, you know, come back to the table? But you've had success with the Jovi. You're going to stay on it?
Yeah, so I started with Aimovig, and after I think I was on it for about a year, it kind of stopped working. So Dr. Jenkins advised me to change to Aimovig. I'm going to stay on it because I also are on 3 monthly Botox injections. And so I'm going to keep that as my PBS plan, and then pay for a Jovi. So a Jovi at the moment, I'm paying $284 a month. Aimovig, I was paying significantly more than that.
Yeah, it's $695.
I don't know the cost of that now.
$695 a month.
Yeah,
it's a lot of money.
I would have continued with that if it was going well with me. And I just have found that Ajovy has been more suitable for me, and it just happens to be lower in cost. But talking about money is the impact of the finances of this. So first of all, because I made some applications to the PBS, as I'm sure you did, Rafaela, to try and get these medications on the PBS. I wrote letters and wrote about the impact of my life. First of all, when I was having 4 migraines a week, 4 days of migraine in a week, I wasn't able to work in a full-time capacity. So, I'm not being very helpful to the Australian economic situation by not being able to work to my abilities. Then on top of that, I'm paying a lot of money for medication. So there's 3 monthly Botox, then there's the Aimovig injections, and I take vitamin B2. I don't know what, I'm taking Panadol. I take an anti-inflammatory and an antiemetic. All these cost money, and the impact on your life financially is very significant. And I think it's really important that these injections get on the PBS, which will help make people become more, included in the economy in Australia, because they'll be able to work to a higher capacity. And I think that's really important for our self-esteem and for our families' finances. I would be so much better off if I did, more well off if I didn't have to have all this financial outlay. It impacts greatly.
It is a really big impact. So I was having this conversation with my dad just on the weekend, and I was saying, that the first 30 grand that I earn goes to keeping me well enough to earn anything. And that's a really, like, when you put it in those terms, right? So say, somebody's offering you a job and it's $60,000 a year, that's not enough. That doesn't pay the bills. So it's right. A really, really tough position to be in. And it kind of exposes the myth of our universal healthcare. If this part of the system, the PBS, doesn't work. But I won't go on too much more political ranting, because I do tend to rant on that subject.
And when I was working 1 day a week as a midwife when I was having all those migraines, and my parents were giving me money to pay for the Aimovig. So I was I'm married with a husband, we have an income, and my parents were having to pay for that. And so that's, I'm so lucky in that respect that I have these amazing parents who are able to support me in that capacity.
All righty. What would be your tip for people who want to thrive with migraine like you do?
Who want to thrive? So it depends what thrive means for you. Thrive means something else for every individual. And I guess at whatever stage you are in your migraine journey, in terms of how well or how unwell you are, thriving means a different thing. So for me, when my migraines were out of control, thriving to me was working 1 day a week and trying to engage with social functions with my friends. Because I just didn't want to, I just couldn't do anything. And my house, it was a mess. My house is still pretty much a mess. My house was a mess, and I couldn't do any gardening, and it impacted my life. So thriving to me back then was working 1 day a week in a job that I love, which was midwifery at Royal North Shore Hospital, and being with friends. And to do that, I was popping a lot of pills. Thriving is actually, real thriving is getting your migraines under control, so that your life is more than just the minimal. More than just the minimal. It is expanding your life so that it kind of equals the amount of things that your friends or your colleagues or your, your family members who are the same age as you, what they can do. And so I think thriving really means making sure that you have a GP that you have a continual relationship with, so constant relationship. So make sure that you find a GP that you see and don't swap around. Don't see this one week, that one this week, and then go to a different practice. Always have continuity with your general practitioner, and make sure that general practitioner really understands migraines and has a really good ability to refer. So has a really good referral base, because that's really important, because it was my GP that got me onto this amazing neurologist. The other thing is to make sure that you have continued contact with your neurologist, and to listen to them and be open to the changes, what they are suggesting. So they will probably suggest you to change your medication. And when you are having migraines, it's almost like there's a fear of any change, because you're worried that will exacerbate your migraines. But I think it's really important to just the specialists, that's their life, that's their it's not a hobby, it's not a job, it's their vocation. And I think listen to them. Try and get your migraines under control, and you utilize all the medications that there are. Don't see that medications are a bad thing. And I used to be a naturopath, so my friends would have laughed that I was on all these medications, but I only see these medications as a positive thing. We only have one life. So, don't say, oh, I'm not going to take medications because, it's bad for my liver or bad for this. The thing is, we have these medications to help us, so utilize them, because the positive impact that they've had on my life is immeasurable. The other thing is, we always have dreams, and no matter what those dreams are, if they're big or they're small, learning to crochet, getting a PhD, learning how to do Xbox. Make sure that you chip away at them again and again and again, whatever they are. It could be any dream, and however difficult these dreams are. I think it's important to continue to chip away at dreams. Dreams aren't, you don't have to be all so smart, you don't have to all be so accomplished to get, to your dreams. What you need to do is you need to chip away at your dreams. In order to get that, you need to be under control, because otherwise you're not going to want to get out of bed. You're not going to be able to get out of bed. So you need to get your migraines under control. I think also having a healthy diet is helpful. So Dr. Jenkins advised me to not drink alcohol, to not eat chocolate, to not eat oranges, to limit my cheese, to take vitamin B2, to increase my iron intake, because that has got to do with some kind of neuron cells. And so, I did all those changes. So I think in order to get control over your migraines so that you can thrive, is you've got to put effort in, and you've just got to give it your shot, every shot that you can. The other thing that I'm very blessed with, and I didn't need to put in situ because it was already there, was a very, very strong support network. So I'm very lucky that I've got the most amazing husband, my amazing parents, my brothers, their wives, as well as my in-laws. And so they were able to help me as I studied my PhD and studied and studied with children. And so, for instance, I went and lived with my mum and dad for a month and took 2 of my children, left 1 of them at home while I finished writing up my PhD. So what you need to do is, if you don't have that support network, try and figure out how you can get that. And that might be through community volunteers or things like that, because you always need to have someone that you can count upon to help you if you need it. And I think the other thing is to be really open with your employers about your migraines, and to explain the impact that they have on you, so that if you don't achieve your work plan for the year, it's apparent that it's not got to do with your determination or your ability to undertake your job, but it's got to do with the fact that migraines have a very big impact on your life. And migraines are an unseen illness. They're unseen. So if someone saw me, I put makeup on for this interview, but if someone saw me when I was a migraine, I don't look like this. I'm a mess, and I can't have lights on. But it's not the migraines don't even impact you when you have a migraine. They impact you all days of the week, 7 days a week. And so I think it's really important, in order for you to thrive and to be successful, whatever job you have, is to be able to be open with your employer, because they probably know nothing about migraines. They've probably thought that their migraine, their headache that they get once a month from watching too much television is a migraine. I think it's really important to be open with your employers. And I put it on my work plan where it says, is there anything that may inhibit you from achieving your work plan goals? And I will say, yes, I have a significant illness that impacts on my life. I don't go into it what it is. The big boss doesn't need to read that, but I say that. So I think there's my, try and get in control with it. Get a GP that you have a good relationship. Get a person who actually specializes in migraines. So neurologists specialize in all different types of conditions, and try and get one that actually specializes in migraines. And the other thing is, and just, try and go to social events. So on Saturday night, I had a work farewell and I had a headache all day. So I took a Maxalt tablet and I was like, oh, I think I'm going to have to call and say I can't go. But I just forced myself to go. And then I had a cocktail, which I don't normally drink. And I was like, I relaxed and I was like, okay, this headache's, it's okay. But normally, I probably would have said no. And I think thriving is not being socially isolated. I think it's really important to try and be as social as you can. So they're my tips.
That's really good advice.
Is that good advice?
I think that's fantastic advice.
What tips would you say?
I have plenty of tips that I've kind of given before, but definitely the go to social functions. I think particularly when you're in that bad state and you're no longer working, get out of the house and go and see people. It's really important for your mental health as well as your physical health. It's one of the reasons why we started up the local groups and the local meetups, right? It's a coffee. It's with other people who live with migraine. They will get it if you cancel it last minute. They will also get it if you turn up looking like death and wearing sunglasses and wanting to vomit, right? We get it. So definitely do get out of the house if you can, because it's the isolation and the loneliness that will get you more than the physical symptoms sometimes.
And that's true, because I'd say to Dr. Jenkins, I'd say, look, I have a beautiful husband. I've got lovely parents, beautiful children. Nothing bad has happened in my life. But why do I feel, so down? Because why do I feel down? And she says, it's because you're in chronic pain. You're in chronic pain and that's causing you to be down, and so it is really important to try and maintain a healthy mental health. However you do that. And so that's why continuity of medical care is really important.
All righty, Annabel, thank you so much for making the time and for talking to us about your life and thriving with migraine.
Thank you so much, Rafaela. And I wish everyone all the best. Thank you.